Okay, we're live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Inforunners Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about something interesting. Recently, they announced 60-player servers. Yes, extremely excited about that. But everyone's like, this is big, but this is not as big as you might think, but it's actually larger than you think. Wow. I just contradicted myself while trying to say something.
Some people think it's, a really big thing, but what we're going to be looking at is the fact that this is the real game changer. The Pioneer can move over to the side. The really big thing about putting 6 people in a server and increasing the sort of controls for being able to party up and get your friends and your org mates into that 60-player server, which we heard first in the Evocati leaks, and then followed by the Newegg sort of media release stream, that this greatly affects orgs in ways that have never been done before. Up to this day and into the past, orgs have been sort of a vaporware. We've been on forums and on Discord. They play in very small sort of groups, but they
theory crafting galore, but
not actually
nothing.
Playing together in large groups. And so in order to really understand and explain what we're talking about, we're going to go back into the past and explain where we're coming from and going into how this is going to change everything from now on once 3.0 goes into release.
Yes, and if we look into the past, the one thing that we definitely don't want CIG doing is to be rushing things. Because if you look at the past, the PU came out. They went in, they released the PU, and okay, sounds awesome, but you can't really play with friends. And you're like, well, you might be asking me, well, you can play with friends. I'm like, have you ever tried getting in a server with a friend or calling for help? And your friend keeps on getting tossed into different servers as you're sitting here waiting for help.
I remember a year and a half ago, getting 10 people or 20 people into a server was an absolute nightmare. We basically called it loading screen training, if that rings a bell to anyone's ears. Basically, it was more trouble getting everyone into the server, and once you were into the server, keeping them in there was another challenge in itself. And it made incredibly frustrating for running organized events and organized sort of group play for organizations. And we frustratingly tried as hard as we could over many, many months to keep the org active in playing Star Citizen, all through the different patches. Like all the way through to 2.63, we were playing actively almost every single night, maybe March? Yeah, which is like, that's a really long time, because even about then, all the other orgs that I was in communicating with their leaders, they had already moved on and given up and were playing other games. And to them, Star Citizen was something they talked about, something they waited for, but it wasn't something they actively engaged in anymore as a group.
Definitely. And this is actually compounded by the fact that FPS is terrible when you get near a full server. And CIG really needs to, with this next release, and I'm just going to have to say this outright, make sure it is polished, because 60-player servers, very, very important, because this is when orgs are finally going to be like, can we actually function as an org? Can we not just theory craft, but can we actually do things as a group? Can we be organized? This is what 60 players means. 60 players means not just more people in a server, we're getting closer to the deadline. It means orgs will be able to be orgs, and then there'll be content built by players, not just built by the devs. And that's a big game changer.
Well, it's not just 60 players. It's as like you said, the matchmaking systems, and perhaps even like expansive enough of a content where you can create the scenarios that you're playing in, something that will keep you busy and constantly fresh. 3.0 is the first real version of a proper sandbox with planets and moons and locations. Being able to get that many people into a group and being able to do things reliably. This changes everything. This changes what orgs are. people who join orgs before was more of a social thing. Now it's actually a reason to get together and do activities. Because, like, as it is now, even 2.6.3, everyone's sort of burnt out on 2.6.3. But
that's because all you have is Arena Commander. All you have is Star Marine. The PU is really not an option, and you sometimes get in as groups, sometimes you don't, and then someone drops because of a bug, and they're no longer there. And that's really not fun. And this is why 60-player servers, yes, it means a lot more than people think, but it also can mean a lot less than people think if it's not done right with the proper matchmaking built into it, so you can actually group up. Or you can actually say, hey, I want to join you. You joined a friend's group, and you joined that instantly. And they also need to build a friend system behind that. This is the other thing that I think with 60 players, they need the friend system with it. And I think we'll see that.
Well, like I've said, I talked with a lot of other orgs. They don't actively play Star Citizen anymore. They've been in like holding mode for 3.0 for like the last 6 months. And, you know, it's long ago dried up their interest in this. But the thing is, with the expansive sandbox, the greater number of players you can bring in and the number of scenarios you can draw from, and hopefully finally after 3.0 moving into a 3-month rotation for new content coming in, we will be moving into the first phase in Star Citizen where people will be consistently playing the game as opposed to waiting for it.
Well, and this is also going to be the chance where this is going to probably be the first time that a lot of people get exposed to it, because someone's going to say, hey, cool, I can play with my friends. We get 60 people, and you start pulling in people. And this is where you're going to find, this is make or break really in some ways, because this is where you're going to get a lot of first impressions from new people.
Yeah, well, first impressions are everything. And frankly, CIG, I really, really have these fears that they're going to try and rush 3.0, whether it be the PTU or the PU, before it's ready. Anyone remember 2.6 patch, which they rushed out for the holidays? It was a buggy mess, full of crashes.
Hi guys, we're releasing it. Bye, we're going on holidays
for several weeks.
Have fun.
The optics on that was horrible. Anyone who became new to the project and look at that would immediately dismiss it and probably have a stigma of their concept of what Star Citizen was. That was absolutely horrible. And frankly, the fans, the backers, the true believers, they can wait for a proper, stable release to come, because they're going to be here no matter what. And they'll forgive it. That's right.
Yeah, first impressions are big. And just saying, go to any game out there that has a beta or a alpha, and they let a bunch of people in for a short time and they test it out. If it's buggy and a mess, guess what? You're never probably going to see those people again. Or you're going to see them only sporadically. And this is really where they have to wait. And I'm seeing a lot of things, like if you look at ATV, Around the Verse, and all of that, it looks to me like they're going to try to release at least something from Christmas, and that's actually concerning in some ways if it's not stable, or at least in the PTU version, so they can at least have a disclaimer of, hey, this is the public test universe, guys. This isn't actually real.
But no, they really need to resist the urge to pacify the community in favor of a better, actual, stable release. Something that's, polished. Because at the end of the day, it does more damage to Star Citizen. And I know they're in a rush to try to get it out for the sales. Well, that ship has already sailed. And, but the thing is, there's so much good that can come out of a single positive, polished release, because they'll get that press the first time and only the first time. And if it's bad on the first time, everyone will not really take a closer look. It won't get the same media hype and release when they do it out the second time or the third time after they've patched the bugs and made it actually a good, solid, and stable release. And so, if they really want to take it's seriously as a business, they need to get it out right. They need to do it once, and they need to cut, measure once, cut once, and get it right the first time.
And the thing is, people will be a lot more respectful of a wait for when it's a good product, and then they'll be like, oh, well, let's say there's a long wait, because I really don't believe that Chris Roberts is going to do that quarter release. Just saying, I think they're... I just don't trust them at this point. But the thing is, let's just say they start doing what they say, or start at least releasing in full, high-quality batches. Then people will start believing what they say, and it will start having a more of effect. Because right now, you get a lot of people going, oh, and I have to say, Blazing X, great example right there, No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is actually improved now. If you actually go back,
I hear it's actually a good game now.
But, you know, but the first impressions,
it really kicked it in the teeth. The amount of refunds and the bad press. Just imagine if they waited 3 months and had that as polished as hell. If they could even meet up to a quarter of the hype and had a quarter of the people who bought it who are actually pleased, that would be more than enough for them to do exceedingly well. And it's the sort of thing that's, you know, patience is more than a virtue. It's good business practice. But well, I can see
that's the thing. We have to be patient with them, and they have to
be patient with us.
Well, and not just be patient with us. Know when to ignore everyone screaming. Know when to ignore everyone saying, "I want to see 3.0 now. I want to see 3.0." They have to learn to ignore that, and we have to learn to just accept that they know what they're doing. But this trust has to be rebuilt. Hate to say, as a fanboy, I feel like this trust needs to still be rebuilt, because,
well, you know, when 3.0 finally gets, like, okay, so that it gets out, it's finished, let's say February, okay? I know, I think that's optimistic myself. I don't see myself as a pessimist. But the thing is, if they move into that 3-month release schedule every 3 months, if instead of trying to rush for the anniversary and the holiday sales and the CitizenCon, they should put proper streamed events every time they put out a major patch every 3 months. Do sales around the patches. Do, you know, regular sort of community content about that.
Or ships ready.
And that's right. And instead of earning all their money at the last quarter of the year, put it into a more sustainable model of a quarterly based sales and a media and sort of release schedule approach. I could see them doing that.
I'm kind of a fan of what Nuberfire was talking about, by everything being open. I'm pretty sure he had a video recently talking about that, not having limited sales.
They will never move away from the limited sale model. As much as he likes to preach on his soapbox, the thing is,
makes sense. They
are wed to limited sales. Okay, it's sort of like you're pulling on Chris Roberts' wisdom teeth there, and he's not going to let go without a fight. Okay.
I'm just saying, it's like, when 3.0 comes live, I really think some of these ships need to not be limited, because that's when people are going to be like, oh, cool, I want to do cargo hauling. I just saw this whole sea out there. I'm going to have to wait an entire year, instead of being like, oh, I see this. Let me just buy this now because I can. I mean, that's a big opportunity for more sales.
No, it's just, as soon as they allow for ships to be bought in-game, and then people thinking they're going to keep them, they crush the limited availability sale model. So from a business sense, it's impossible for them to let go of that until they go into full release and find alternative funding methods. So limited ships are here to stay until we move into final beta, more persistent release.
Oh, but let's take a look at some of these comments, though, because we've pretty much beat our
We've ignored your comments at the moment, because we wanted to get that all off our chest. But yeah, let's go through them.
Well, let's take this first one. Comment number 1 is from Gecko. Do you think the Polaris will be transonic or even supersonic capital corvette, since it is the fastest capital ship and very aerodynamic looking?
It'll be fast for a 155-meter ship, but don't make any bets on something that's smaller.
It will definitely be fast for, because it is essentially a hunter-killer's hunter-killer. The issue I'm going to say is CIG is stuck with this idea about max speeds, even though in space, technically capital ships will be just as fast as your fighters. It's just how fast they accelerate.
Yeah, I'm saying that don't expect yourself to outrun a Saber.
Yes.
Or maybe not even a Hornet.
Well, you might be able to hunt down a Retaliator.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, look at the thrust to mass ratio. I mean, in theory, and you can say that for the Javelin too. In theory, if you look at the thrust to mass ratios in certain large ships, they're actually kind of ridiculous.
I have to agree. We got Bennett Gross here. 60 people is just the start. The demand for huge space battles will drive it to a much larger number, and they will find a way to accommodate this. I certainly hope they do. Otherwise, some of those bigger capital ships and having lots of little ships interacting with those is never going to be a thing.
What they need.
I mean, just from my experience, we've had up to... We were on the training division in org, and we've had up to 40 people online. And the really tragic part of only having 24 player servers is that we might not even be able to get that many people into 2 servers. We might have to split it over 3. And then you've got friends of friends who can't play with friends who feel like they've been left to the side. And it's a horrible sort of thing to try and manage, because I go from leading one group to suddenly leading several sub-leaders and people feeling left behind and, excluded from that group. And so 3.0 is going to be more than just the fact that you fit 60 people. It means that larger organizations will not be playing as small little friends groups. They will probably be able to organize large and more complex activities, because we've gone
take
before.
over an entire server. Some
That's
larger
right.
orgs can fit full 60 people, do training operations, do mock battles, and this is actually where I think 60 people may actually transfer over to Arena Commander, because that is something I want more than the 60 in the actual main area, because I want to see 60 players in Arena Commander where you can actually have capital ship v capital ship in a little bit smaller environment, so maybe you have better frames, or even the scenario of I can actually do capital ship v capital ship without actually risking my capital ship. And that, because a lot of people, as we've talked before, war is not profitable, and that will actually give people the opportunity to actually be conscientious in the PU, but actually have their cake as well and actually have those type of battles.
I think the people who own Idrises and are running squadrons will probably get most of their take-home action out from Arena Commander, where there are no associated costs and where they just continually do training and scenarios and set up battles. But like at the moment, even in Arena Commander or the PU, we can only do maybe a Starfarer defending against some bombers and a fighter wing and then a defending fighter wing, and then we're out of slots. And I'd consider that a small capital battle, nothing epic or huge. And yeah, so this is going to change the scale of it. Yeah. It's and even then we have to fight to get those people in, because the servers fill up with some other group, or some people can't connect, or are having troubles with the friends list and the matchmaking, and we can't invite one person because they can't see them properly on the friends list. So it's been an absolute horror of an experience trying to get large groups to do activities together.
I'm just going to say, Mario Lara, I do agree it is profitable if you're not the one in the war. But if you are actually one of the 2 participating sides, it's not going to be profitable in Star Citizen, because think about it. It's not like in EVE where you actually own full territory. If you're fighting over mining veins and everything, it's probably more profitable just to abandon the vein to someone else.
Oh, here's a question I love. Bennett Gross. Do you think prices will remain the same for the anniversary sale and then go up for the holidays? Or do you think we will see price increases this week? Now, this is a real interesting thing, because there's been some new news out that CIG have said they are not going to provide the price on the new concept ship, and they're not going to be providing possibly the price on future concept ships or price increases. Now, honestly, this is backwards as all hell, because instead of providing more information, they're now deciding to be all secretive and provide as little as possible.
Artificial scarcity.
No, I'm thinking ahead of that. They are not telling us something about the anniversary sale. So, this might have been a one-off, and now they've been forced to correct their policy of providing information a week before the sale. I think that we may be in for a very large amount of different price increases across a wide variety of ships ahead of time. Not to mention the removal of $0 CCUs, which was promised before 3.0, not when 3.0 actually hits. So
$0 I think will go away, but I think they should at least be polite enough to put it out beforehand, like this is the last anniversary sale you could do it in, because this is where people can start actually maybe fully selecting their fleets. Because
I think it's bad practice. I really don't like them being secretive. It's telling. It shows that they know something and they really don't want to reveal it until CitizenCon. And the fact that it's withholding information, it's probably not a positive one, because it means
anytime a corporation withholds information to its consumers is not usually a good idea, because that means something bad is going on, or something that we're not going to be too happy with.
Most likely they'll be trying to limit the fallout pre-sale before it happens, because if we had all this information and a lot of ships were going up in price, there'd be a huge amount of negative publicity, literally a salt mine, before the anniversary sale even kicks off. So it's always weird that they manage to try not to tell us something, but in the meantime they give you just enough of a hint to sort of pierce what their more true thoughts are. So I think there will be those prices increases, and I think a lot of people might be shocked at some of the things that happen.
Well, I think some things may not get a price increase early, though, because I think if they play their cards right, they can say this is the last time it's going to be. Some of these ships are going to be sold at this price. Just saying. I mean, that would be a really good business model right there. Right before Christmas, people have wallets. But you're probably right.
They've talked about ships only increasing in price when they're flight ready, but that hasn't always been the case. They have been very inconsistent and chopped and changed on that, and so yeah, we will see. This is going to be one of the most interesting anniversary sales to see where the ship prices, the markets go. And the other interesting thing, if you read the newsletter, there is more than one new ship. They said,
"Oh, I definitely saw that," and I was sitting here going, "Well, it looks like we have definitely a snub fighter." Carrick was my thought, and I saw your video, and that seems to be your thoughts as well. But I'm almost wondering, what industrial role are we missing right now? And there's a ton of different ones, because we're not supposed to get any more military ships this year.
Well, we will see. It certainly hasn't been their focus, so I think the general idea of their word is true. There hasn't been many military ships. It's certainly not the focus, but yeah, I have no idea what this other ship is going to be. Maybe it's going to be a land vehicle. I would love to see a tugboat. Yeah, or how about a pickup truck? But we'll find out.
We need a pickup truck. Oh, it is going to be a ground vehicle, because I remember that the what was it called? Tumbrel has another vehicle coming out, and it's due to come out. So that would make perfect sense that this would come out with this sale.
And they've got one of the early days as a ground vehicle sale as well. So yeah. It makes sense that they released that sale earlier, so it goes over the whole sale.
I actually think that if you notice, which company is going to be the first one? Anvil. What does that ship look like on there?
Anvil.
I think they're going to open up with that. I think there may be a ground vehicle. I'd almost think there's one more sale. I would actually.
They didn't say a couple of ships. They said ships.
I
they did say couple. I think they did. I could be wrong.
Well, I don't care if they say couple, but think about it. If that's an Anvil ship on there that we've never seen, that is going to be probably an Anvil's first. That's number one. Vehicles are if I remember right, midweek. Let me look at this. I think it's midweek. And if it's
go.
Well, I'm just saying, if it ends up being midweek, then that would be a sale. All right, Anvil first, ground vehicles on the 26th. I think they're going to have one more out there. It's perfectly spaced.
Yeah, I think that might be likely. And they've got a number of ground vehicles they need to cover. The Origin Rover, I believe.
The Origin Rover, definitely. Consolidated Outlands. We're going to probably get to see, hopefully, the Mustang rework.
Oh, I'd love that. Because they've got a whole day for a Consolidated Outlands, and they only got 2 ships if you don't count the variants.
It would be awesome to see a 3rd ship, because I'd really like to see something else from Consolidated Outlands. Maybe a multi-crew ship of some sort that's not huge.
You don't go from like baby ship to monster capital without building something in between.
Yeah. So I actually wouldn't be surprised to see something from RSI.
Question from Gecko again. Hey guys, I think the Noob Fire made a video preaching that all ships purchasables during the game's development should have LTI because they were bought with real cash. What do you think of it? Honestly, I think the whole LTI problem, and it comes down to the whole business model of limited ship availability. I know it's easily bypassed, but the thing is they're wed to this business model, and that LTI is just another nail in the coffin that holds that all together.
LTI is important because no one is going to fork over for something like a Polaris or a Pioneer or an Idris without guaranteed not being able to lose that. Because, just gonna say, how irritated would you be if you bought an Idris and then lost that?
Well, I think you're a little stupid. I'd hope they'd have automatic contracts when your insurance runs out, it automatically renews, and so, and then give you a warning if you were bankrupt and couldn't afford the insurance. But I'm pretty sure Concierge might be able to help you out there and say, "Oh, it was a horrible mistake. Help me, please." And they'd go, "Oh, okay." But the thing is, LTI is, as long as they are going for the limited ship and limited availability and restricting artificially the number of ships or which type of ships or how many ships, either through a price, LTI, limited sales. This is part of the pantheon of mechanics that they're using to drive their sales. It's not going to change.
Way around it. And the only way around it I see for them, if they wanted to do something like that, would be to give a special version of LTI which covers maybe the parts on it, or at least a percentage of the parts. So that way there is something special for backing. I just tricked out my Polaris. I get maybe 50% the Polaris and 50% of whatever it costs for the parts, or all the parts back.
Mind you, I'm talking from the business merchant side of me, and I'm talking about the business case for CIG. Personally, I don't see why they couldn't give every ship LTI. I don't think they have to make it a big deal. And I think it's much more fair that everyone who backed before it went into release got LTI. It's something they could do. It would cost them absolutely nothing, and I think it would be fair.
Well, it'd save all this weirdness of buying LTI tokens, then limiting LTI token.
Yeah, what I think's right, and what I think they're going to do as a business, completely different. That does not align.
I don't think CIG is going to change anything. Working for, and honestly, it's kind of too late to be changing anything, because I bet you this time next year we're going to be getting very close to 3-1. So if we get close to 3-1 when you can start getting stuff in game, that's kind of going to cheapen buying ships a little bit. Oh, and going to what someone's saying down there, we need a tugboat spaceship. I completely and totally agree.
Oh, this isn't live because CitizenCon didn't happen already? Calm the Slayer? I don't understand that question.
Oh.
I think we've gone through all the questions, maybe.
Well, let's check out Twitch here.
I've got both of them. I got to teach you that trick.
You do need to teach me that trick there. That is actually something right there that someone mentioned. Along with naming, that is something that I would like to actually see more of. Being able to actually name your ship.
I think they should sell things like naming and just let people name their ships as they want. And it's sort of something that it harms no one. It has great potential for them to raise new funds. And the same thing with ship skins.
Add it to war bonds, like free naming with war bonds. Like I thought that was a really good idea. It's like you get free naming and a discount on that. I mean,
like the ship skin system is ready to go in 3.0. I'm pretty sure the tech and everything they have. System. I think they've had skins they've been waiting to sell during the anniversary sale and the holiday sales, but they can't sell them because the systems in there to accept them aren't ready yet. I.e., 3.0 goes to proper PU release. So I can definitely see in future a lot more cosmetic items, more along the lines of, ship skins, like a Big Benny's Reliant. Stuff like that. We've seen these skins. We know they exist. It's just that 3.0 is not here yet.
Well, I'm just going to have to say when 3.0 comes out, I know it's not going to be in there, but I'm hoping they soon also allow the ability for me to put like my Big Benny's machine in like one of my larger ships. Or some of those hanger flare. It'd be great if you could actually stuff some of that in a ship.
I think in future, this is a question from Jeff Taffer. Do you think they're going to open up multiple bays in the hangar module? I think they're not going to touch the hangar bay module until they can integrate that actually into the PU. So when you're in the hangar with your ship and then the door opens up, that's like outside of Daymar or Levski or one of those landing locations. As soon as they integrate hangars into the landing locations, which they're probably waiting on the planets, which we might start getting in 3.1, then I think they're not going to touch the hangars until they get the landing locations migrated with the hangars.
Yes. That's definitely going to be a big thing right there. And I agree with you on that. Actually, the big question is, with hangars, like what are we going to be doing for your large capital ships? I mean, I expect them to be just sitting in space by themselves or hooked up, like to that station like they showed with the Idris in one of the images a while back.
BlazenX asks, what org mechanics can we import from EVE into Star Citizen? To be honest, I hope they do taxes. To be able to set taxation, be able to collect funds for the org without having to just make it nice, simple, and organized. Because managing money is always a problem, and EVE has very much streamlined that to make it as painless as possible. So that's one for me.
That's definitely one. I have to say, I expect metagame to be easily transported. Just saying, metagame happens everywhere, but it will be somewhat lessened by the fact that NPCs control 90% of the things. But
oh, absolutely.
I'll expect metagames. I already know of a couple orgs that have had some problems with people inside just blowing it up.
Look at quantum interdiction. It is so close to the EVE model, what we're starting to move into. And that's a good thing, because they really have an interesting interdiction model. Something where you can both skillfully catch someone and avoid other people who are trying to capture you in quantum interdiction. So,
yes.
I can see a number of mechanics in EVE being used well. But like you said, Star Citizen is no EVE, because at the end of the day, EVE is run and governed by human organizations. And Star Citizen, the humans are nothing to match the NPCs, and so if you step too far and out of line, they're going to correct you.
The only thing that I could think would be comparable would be maybe the multiple orgs in an Outer Rim system, but it wouldn't be over multiple systems like an EVE. It would be like in a star system. Like, take Crusader, like, right now. Like, you have one org controlling a moon here, a couple orgs doing stuff like that in this asteroid field. It's going to be on a much smaller scale if it can even be in any sort of existence.
But the thing is, it's not about lawless or law-abiding space. Even in pirate space, there are factions there. They are factions that if you don't play by their rules, they go and hunt you. And, and the same thing for Vandal and Jian and Banu and other human factions. It's not about, alien versus alien or good versus evil, and you have a rep of good versus evil. It's like your rep is different compared to every single faction. Yeah.
It's PvA, player versus all. I mean, it's player versus player, it's player versus environment. And when you look at the world, the one thing I do like about this is there's going to be limited. The enemy ships aren't just going to spawn. There's going to be limited numbers, and they're going to have behaviors. They're making this a lot more realistic in that sense. So an org could actually go team up with several orgs in theory and completely go into Vandal space and kick them out of Vandal space, and they'll eventually have to amass and come back in. So in theory, you could do that before mining.
But also think about, like, if you have an org and they align themselves to one of the major factions in the area, you're not just attacking that org anymore. You're attacking the entire faction, org and NPC alike. And you're not going to just get a response from that org. The NPC faction itself will come in and interact with you and counter you.
Yep. And economic nodes, that's the other thing. Just because you control an area doesn't mean you'll be able to fully control the nodes. Because there's going to be nodes for different things. Which means just because you maybe have a bunch of mining in a system doesn't mean you'll be able to flood a node. And that's also going to limit org dominance of control. So
I think we've gone through most of the questions now, so at least touched on. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you like the show and I hope you like the topic.
It's good to be back. I do apologize. My attendance is going to be a little bit spotty as we go through the last several weeks leading up to finals. So expect to see a lot more of guests filling in my spot for a little while.
Well, hopefully we'll drag Snake kicking and screaming back onto the podcast. But Execute has seemed to take a liking. So expect to see more of him for sure.
Be sure to put that in the comments that we said we had a drag Snake in here kicking and screaming.
I forgot to change your name, Execute.
Oh, wow. Hold it. There you go. I've lost some hair.
Yeah.
All right.
As always, great to see you, everyone. If you have comments, put them down below in the YouTube comments. We do read them. And catch you around. And Dyson went out before me. Thank you, everyone.